Welcome to the deep dive.
Hmm.
Have you ever felt like your life's stuck on a loop? You keep making the same choices, maybe hitting the same emotional walls or finding yourself with the same kind of person again and again,
Yeah.
even when your adult brain knows better.
Hmm.
Well, if that sounds familiar, then this deep dive is definitely for you. Today, we're looking at that silent script, the hidden one that seems to dictate our path. It's a mechanism way more powerful than just willpower.
That's right. We're sort of descending into the architecture of the psyche, you could say, trying to understand this really deep force that drives us, which is the compulsion to repeat, or the technical term for it is Wiederholungswang.
Wiederholungswang.
Right, and the core idea is, well, it's pretty stark, actually. A lot of the time, you don't consciously choose your path forward. You repeat it. Yeah. And this repetition, it pulls you towards what's familiar. Familiar pain, maybe familiar failure, or those patterns of intimacy where someone always pulls away. And it's driven by forces that are, well, they're older than your memory, older than language even.
And it's crucial to say this isn't some kind of character flaw, is it? It's not about being weak.
Not at all. No, it's an emotional reality. It's rooted deep in your personal history. So what we're doing today, it feels a bit like an archaeology of the soul.
Archaeology of the soul, I like that.
It's this necessary, sometimes frightening, look down into those buried layers of your earliest life. Because that's where the foundations were laid, not in, solid marble, but in that soft, vulnerable clay of infancy, shaped by silence, maybe fear, and really crucially by unmet needs.
So our mission then is to try and shine a light on that foundation.
Exactly. We're searching for a kind of mirror, a true mirror maybe, something that reflects the child you once were, because that child is still there, still whispering, still using those old survival strategies.
And still shaping the decisions we think we're making freely as adults today.
Precisely. Every single one.
Okay, here's the hook then. The thing that makes this so real for probably everyone listening. Picture this. You're at a crossroads in your life right now. Maybe it's a career change or moving or big relationship decision. And let's say there are 4 paths in front of you. 2 of them seem, well, they glow with adult promise, right? Stability, real connection. Another path is tough, but you know you could do it.
Right, the sensible options.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then there's this 4th path.
Yeah.
And it's shadowed, it's quiet. Maybe it even feels a bit dangerous or self-destructive. But somehow it feels the most familiar. It just pulls you in. There's this gravity to it.
And that pull, that gravity, it's not rational, is it? It's visceral. It's in your body.
Totally. You try to choose one of the glowing paths, the logical one.
Yeah.
But then, bam, this familiar dread just rises up in your gut. Maybe your hands get cold.
The tone of voice of that potential new boss. Suddenly it hits you. It sounds just like your father did when he was being cold, dismissive.
Or the vulnerability that the promising relationship needs. It feels exactly like how you felt right before you got really hurt the first time.
And what happens then?
Well, you tell yourself it's about logistics, or it's just bad timing, or you made a poor judgment call.
You rationalize it away.
Exactly. But you end up choosing the shadowed path. Again, the repetition just takes over.
And the reason for that is simple, but also kind of devastating. Your unconscious mind, it doesn't run on adult time. It doesn't care about your grown-up goals or your ambitions.
It doesn't care about your resume.
Not one bit. It only cares about survival and absolute loyalty. Loyalty to those first emotional contracts you signed, wordlessly, when you were tiny.
Contract signed just to keep love. Or avoid being abandoned.
To ensure survival, basic survival in a world where you were completely dependent. So the unconscious is constantly trying to stage a reenactment. It's trying to resolve that original dynamic that never felt finished, never felt right.
Try to win the love it never quite got, or finish the sentence that got cut off.
Using the only script it knows, it genuinely believes on some level, if it just repeats the conditions perfectly this time, it can finally master them. Fix it.
Okay, let's really dive into the architecture of this drive then. We mentioned that term, that heavy German word, Wiederholungswang.
Wiederholungswang, yes. The compulsion to repeat.
If it's not a flaw, like we said, what's its actual purpose? Why does the psyche do this?
Well, fundamentally, it's purpose. It's about trying to sort of resolve incomplete history. It's like the psyche's oldest logic. What wasn't mastered, wasn't dealt with back then in childhood.
It has to be reenacted now, in adulthood.
Exactly. Until it's finally understood, integrated. In a way, the compulsion is an attempt at healing. It's trying to get it right this time.
But the problem is we usually just repeat the painful bit.
Right.
Without actually having the new tools to change the ending.
That's the tragedy of it often. We repeat the setup, but lack the insight or the different response needed to create a new outcome.
And you really do see this compulsion everywhere, defining huge life choices. You hear these patterns all the time, like choosing partners who always pull away, emotionally or maybe even physically.
Oh, that's one of the clearest examples. Absolutely. If your main caregiver, say a parent, withdrew their attention or their warmth right when you, as a child, needed it most, you're left with this gaping, unresolved need for connection.
So the adult you isn't drawn to someone who's actually available.
Often, no. You're drawn to the withholding kind of love because that pattern feels familiar. It's like the unconscious says, this challenge, I know this one. This time I'll be good enough or perfect enough or maybe just persistent enough, and I'll finally win that love that was held back.
That sounds like such a painful quest.
It is. It's often an unending quest for a very specific kind of recognition that maybe can never truly be given by the new person.
What about self-sabotage? That's another big one. You see people who are just brilliant, climbing high, and then boom, they hit some invisible ceiling and it all crashes down. The job, the relationship.
That kind of repetition often points back to really early family stuff around success, maybe even envy within the family.
How so?
Well, perhaps when you were a child, your parents' love felt safest or most present only when you were struggling a bit or failing.
But when you shone, when you did really well.
Maybe you were met with subtle withdrawal or jealousy, or even being subtly shamed for being too much. The unconscious learns a harsh lesson from that. Shining is dangerous. Shining leads to being alone.
So getting close to real success feels like danger.
Exactly. It triggers an internal alarm, and so the adult mind finds a way unconsciously to engineer a downfall, to get back to that state of sort of moderate failure or neediness, because that's where love felt stable, paradoxically.
Wow. And there are subtle repetitions too, right? Like that person who's always apologizing for just existing.
Yes, the constant low-level hum of apology. That often comes from growing up where your basic presence felt like an inconvenience, a burden.
Like your joy was too loud or your needs were too frequent.
Right. Precisely. You internalize this deep feeling that just being you is somehow problematic. So the compulsive apologizing, it's like a preemptive strike. Sorry, just trying to placate the world, hoping you won't be told to just go away. Which to a child feels like utter annihilation.
To really get the gut feeling of this, let's go back to that image you mentioned, the 5-year-old building a tower.
We really have to sit with that one. Picture this little kid pouring everything. They have their pride, their focus into building this amazing tower of blocks. It's tall, it's intricate.
And they're bursting to show someone. They need that look of pride, that wow from their dad.
So they run to him, but he doesn't look up. He's on his phone or reading, and he just sighs. Not now. I'm busy.
Oof. Child pauses. Tries again, maybe. Dad, look what I made.
And maybe the dad snaps back, not even meaning to be cruel, just irritated. I said I'm busy. Can't you just go play?
The child takes that in. They can't understand adult stress or distraction. They just feel rejection, overwhelmingly.
They walk back to their beautiful tower. They don't yell. They don't cry at the parent. They just swallow it. And then, this is the crucial moment where the pattern gets wired in. They calmly, deliberately kick the tower over themselves.
But why? Why destroy their own creation?
It's about control. The pain of the parent's indifference feels unpredictable, annihilating. It comes from outside. But the pain of destroying it yourself, it still hurts, but you're the one doing it. It's predictable.
You seize control in the only way you can.
Exactly. By enacting the rejection yourself before the world can do it again, it's a desperate bid for agency.
And fast forward in 30 years, you see it play out in the office. You're that adult in the meeting. You've got this brilliant idea.
You present it, and the boss glances at her watch or checks her phone, doesn't immediately praise you.
And that tiny moment.
Yeah.
That glance. It's the echo of the father's indifference.
Your throat tightens. Maybe your palms sweat. And before you even know why, you're backtracking. You hear yourself saying, actually, you know what? Never mind. It's probably not that fleshed out. We can just stick with the old way.
You kick the tower over. Again.
The adult you is the one doing it now. That self-sabotage feels like self-protection on the deepest level.
So this life script, it got written way back then, shaped not just by big punishments, but by those small, subtle wounds. Absence. Indifference.
Which brings us to what we could call the price of peace. Back then, your fragile little ego had to find a way to survive in that family system, and peace, or just staying connected to the people you depended on, it came at a huge cost.
The cost of burying parts of yourself.
Exactly. Burying your anger because it felt too dangerous, silencing your desires because asking for things led to feeling ashamed, numbing your real needs because they just caused too much trouble or pain.
But those buried bits don't just vanish.
No way. They crystallize. They become your emotional operating system as an adult. They form this hidden grammar of suffering.
And there's this command running underneath it all.
Always. An echoing command from that survival strategy. Don't shine too bright. Don't ask for too much. Don't take up space. Don't be a burden.
And the result is a life spent performing, contorting yourself.
Into the perfect employee, the low-maintenance lover, the easygoing friend, anything, absolutely anything to avoid triggering that primal fear of rejection, of being too much, of being cast out. You become this perfectly compliant machine, but the cost is your authentic self.
Okay, this is huge. If the unconscious is so loyal to this, frankly, painful old script, how does it keep it so hidden? From our smart, rational adult minds, this must be where repression comes in.
Exactly. We have to talk about repression. The German term is Verdrängung, and it's basically the unconscious process of burying psychic stuff, memories, feelings, desires that the child experienced as unbearable or dangerous.
And crucially, it wasn't a conscious choice, right? I think I'll repress this memory now.
Not at all. The child had to forget, had to bury the pain or the rage or the neediness because they needed to keep loving, keep being attached to the very people who were the source of the hurt.
Because seeing their parents as flawed felt too dangerous, like the whole world would crumble.
Precisely. If the stews of your survival feels unstable, the only option is to bury the truth about your experience, to protect the image of the good enough parent, even if the reality was different.
But the stuff you bury, it doesn't just go away, does it? It doesn't decompose down there.
It festers, it ferments, it mutates, and it always finds a way back. This is what we call the return of the repressed.
How does it return if it's repressed?
It comes back in disguise. It might show up as anxiety that seems to come out of nowhere, hitting you in perfectly safe situations, or an obsession, a compulsion you can't explain, like having to check the locks 10 times.
Or recurring nightmares.
Yes, often very symbolic ones. But most commonly, it returns in that repetition compulsion we've been talking about, especially in relationships. That same cycle of attraction, intensity, and then collapse over and over.
The unconscious insists on being heard, one way or another.
It will not be silenced. It speaks through symptoms because it can't speak directly through memory or language about the original wound.
Which brings up that really common pushback, doesn't it? People listening might think, but I don't remember my childhood being that bad. I remember Christmas and birthdays. My parents really did their best.
Of course. And maybe they did do their best with the tools they had. But repression is incredibly good at its job. You remember the acceptable story, the surface narrative, the Kodak moment?
What got repressed wasn't the party itself.
No. It was the moments between those memories, the sharp tone of voice that made you shrink inside, the look of disappointment you pretended not to see, the longing you swallowed because you just knew the answer would be no, or worse, mockery. You remember the story, but you repressed the feeling, the effect.
That's the key distinction then. The trauma wasn't necessarily recorded like a movie in your head, a linear memory.
Exactly. Linear narrative memory develops later. The really early stuff, the pre-verbal stuff, it's recorded in pure affect, raw feeling, and in the somatic imprint, in your body.
Somatic imprint. You mean how our bodies physically learn to react?
Yes. It's the actual wiring of your nervous system. Those neural pathways got hardwired for hypervigilance maybe, or for appeasement, or for making yourself small, self-erasure. Your body remembers the tightening in your chest, even if your conscious mind has no specific memory attached to it.
Can you give an example? How does a pathway wired for self-erasure show up today?
Okay, let's say your system learned early on to constantly scan your parent's face for any flicker of irritation, any sign of danger. It became automatic.
Right.
So now, decades later, your boss sends a curt email, just blunt, maybe rushed. Your adult brain reads the words, but your nervous system, it bypasses the thinking brain. It instantly triggers the 5-year-old survival response, maybe freeze, maybe fawn, maybe that urge to apologize profusely.
Even though the email isn't actually threatening abandonment.
Your body reacts as if it is, your heart rate spikes, adrenaline flows. You might not consciously remember the childhood terror, but your physical reaction, your impulse to make yourself smaller or fix it immediately, that is the memory living in your nervous system. The threat feels present right now.
Wow. That makes the repetition feel almost biologically inevitable. But what's the energy driving it? You said this is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Let's talk about libido.
Yes, and when we talk about libido in this context, we don't just mean sexual energy, though that's part of it. We mean the fundamental life force, your psychic energy, the drive to attach, to connect, to create, to grow. It's the engine of desire, really.
And early on, that energy naturally flows towards parents, caregivers.
It's meant to. It seeks warmth, connection, understanding, mirroring, nourishment in the broadest sense.
But what happens if those caregivers are inconsistent? Sometimes warm, sometimes cold, sometimes just not there. The libido gets confused.
It gets blocked, or stuck, fixated, or it fragments. If the person you're desperately trying to connect with is unavailable, that powerful energy, that drive to connect, it doesn't just disappear.
Where does it go?
It has to attach somewhere. It might fixate on an impossible ideal, the perfect parent you never had, or, and this is where it gets really tricky, it can attach itself to the pain itself.
Why would it attach to pain?
Because if that painful dynamic, the push-pull, the criticism, the withdrawal, was the most consistent thing you got from your source of love, then that pattern becomes encoded as familiar. And deep in the psyche, familiarity often gets mistaken for safety, even if it hurts.
So the adult who keeps being drawn to unavailable people, the ones who need fixing or chasing, it's not that they enjoy suffering. It's not masochism.
It's rarely simple masochism. From this perspective, it's fierce, unconscious loyalty, that trapped psychic energy, the libido. It's still trying to win the original prize, that withheld love from the first important person.
It's not looking for a new love. It's trying to fix the old one.
It's trying to complete the broken circuit from decades ago. It keeps hoping, unconsciously, that this time, with this new person who embodies the old dynamic, the effort will finally pay off, that the distant figure will turn around and truly see them, finally.
But hang on, if you're stuck trying to win an old battle, isn't calling it loyalty maybe? Romanticizing learned helplessness? How is it different?
That's a really sharp question. Learned helplessness is more of a behavioral outcome, isn't it? Where you've tried and failed so many times. You just, you give up trying. You conclude, maybe consciously, maybe not, that effort is pointless.
Right.
This loyalty we're talking about, it's deeper. It's an unconscious drive. It's tied to that primary existential need for attachment. Remember, the child's survival depended on that caregiver relationship. So the loyalty isn't just giving up, it's an active, energetic commitment deep down to finishing the original task. It's driven by the logic, if I just try harder, if I figure out the right way, I can fix this connection, and then I'll be safe. It's not quitting. It's a relentless, often hidden mission.
Okay, so we have this deep loyalty to the past, this energy driving us to repeat. If we zoom out a bit, how does this old script actually show up, day to day, in our relationships now, at work, maybe even with our own kids?
Well, this is where we step right into the concept of transference, which is, well, it's kind of an unsettling idea, really.
Unsettling how?
It suggests that we rarely, if ever, relate to people purely as they are right here and now. Instead, we unconsciously relate to them as if they are figures from our past. They become like vessels carrying the ghosts of our history.
So we're projecting our old stuff onto them.
Constantly, unconsciously. We're setting up what you could call a theater of the past in our present lives.
So that time I felt absolutely furious, like way out of proportion, when my colleague kind of dismissed my idea. That wasn't just about the idea.
Probably much more than that. In that moment, unconsciously, your colleague might stop being just Jane from marketing. She becomes, say, the rival sibling you always felt overlooked in favor of.
Or my boss, who's maybe distressed, suddenly feels like my critical, impossible-to-please father.
Exactly. Or your partner does one tiny thing, maybe sighs in a certain way, and instantly they feel like your engulfing mother, the one you couldn't get away from.
And in that instant, the competent adult just vanishes.
Poof. The child takes center stage again, still trying to win the approval, still trying to fix the parent, still trying to sort out dynamics that were never really theirs to solve in the first place.
Is the clue the intensity?
Yeah.
Like if the reaction feels way bigger than the situation warrants.
That's often the dead giveaway. The emotional intensity, the complete meltdown you might have after something seemingly small. A friend cancels plans last minute, maybe, or you get a minor criticism at work. It feels disproportionate.
Because it's not really about the canceled plan.
No, that's just the trigger. It sets off what we could call the annihilation echo. It resonates with the original, maybe decades-old feeling of being rejected, abandoned, or criticized. The present event is just the stage. The drama that's playing out is ancient, and the feelings are huge because the original stakes felt like life or death to the child.
Okay. So the unconscious is driving this. It's speaking through these repetitions and intense reactions. We need to understand its language then. Let's talk about the symptom. You're saying it's not just a flaw and not just something wrong with us.
Not in this framework, no. The symptom, whether it's anxiety, depression, an addiction, a phobia, it's seen as a coded message. It's like a hieroglyph sent up from the unconscious.
Screaming something the child couldn't say out loud back then.
Exactly. It's a communication, often disguised and painful, designed to force your attention back towards the buried issue. The symptom isn't the enemy, it's the messenger, and we can actually learn to decode these messages.
Okay, let's try decoding a few common ones. What about chronic anxiety, that free-floating dread?
Often, that's the echo of a child who never felt truly safe, who had to be constantly on alert, scanning the environment for the next shift in mood, the next potential abandonment. So the adult body just stays braced, anticipating danger even when none is present. It's a survival system stuck on.
And depression, that heavy, persistent feeling.
That can often be understood as the immense weight of ungrieved losses. It's like the burial ground for all the sadness, the anger, the disappointment, the parts of yourself you had to suppress to keep going, to maintain those essential attachments. The body is literally carrying the weight of all that unexpressed feeling.
What about perfectionism, that relentless drive to be flawless?
Perfectionism. It's so common and so insidious. It often stems from a deep, early belief that love and safety are entirely conditional, that they have to be earned through flawless performance.
Because making mistakes or being vulnerable led to withdrawal or punishment back then?
Precisely. So the adult tries to create this internal fortress of perfection, hoping that if they're just perfect enough, no rejection, no criticism can ever touch them. It's an exhausting, impossible task.
And procrastination. We usually just call that laziness.
But often it's far more complex. It can be a really clever defense against the fear of success. If success, back in your family system, meant outshining someone, maybe provoking envy or being expected to carry even more responsibility,
then succeeding feels dangerous.
Right. So you undermine yourself by delaying, by not finishing. You stay safely within the familiar, maybe less threatening territory defined by that old script.
And lastly, the fear of intimacy. Why is getting close sometimes the scariest thing of all?
Because for many people, historically, getting close meant one of two terrifying possibilities. Either it meant engulfment, being smothered, losing your sense of self, having your boundaries constantly violated, or it meant eventual, inevitable abandonment. The closer you got, the more devastating the eventual loss would be. So the person never learned what safe, reliable, bounded connection feels like.
So the difficulty connecting now isn't a choice or a personality flaw.
It's a fossilized survival strategy. It's the system desperately trying to protect itself from re-experiencing the deepest relational wounds it knows.
Okay. Now, as we're talking through all this, the repetition, the symptoms, the childhood links, I imagine some people listening might be feeling uncomfortable, maybe a tightening in the chest, or maybe a voice popping up saying, no, that's not me, or this is just psychobabble, or my parents were fine, I should be over all this by now.
Exactly that. That visceral pushback, that intellectual argument, that sudden urge to maybe just switch this off. That is resistance, Widerstand in the original German.
It's like the psyche's immune system kicking in. Say, whoa, too close.
That's a perfect analogy. Resistance is the ego's defense mechanism kicking into high gear. It fights hardest to keep the repressed stuff buried precisely when you get close to uncovering it.
Why? If uncovering it is potentially healing.
Because from the perspective of the part of you that put the defenses up in the first place, the child's perspective, letting that truth out felt dangerous, maybe even life-threatening. Keeping it buried was the strategy that worked, the one that ensured survival back then.
So the resistance isn't actually an obstacle to the work.
Freud saw it as the material of the work itself. It shows you exactly where the psychic energy is blocked, where the wound is still active, where the fear resides. It's like a map pointing to the buried treasure or the buried trauma.
But why is it still so powerful now, in adulthood? Intellectually, you might know exploring this could help. But there's still that wall.
Because resistance doesn't operate on adult logic. It's frozen in time. It's still running the old program that says, feeling this rage might lead to being abandoned. Showing this vulnerability will lead to being shamed. Remembering this pain will actually kill me. It truly believes the original danger is still present.
And it doesn't just show up as saying no.
Right.
It can be sneakier.
Oh, much sneakier. It manifests in really subtle ways in daily life. One classic is sudden, overwhelming fatigue. You're on the verge of a breakthrough in therapy or in your journaling, and bam, you literally can't keep your eyes open.
or turning everything into theory, intellectualizing.
Yes, you can talk for hours about attachment theory or trauma responses using all the right jargon, but you skillfully avoid feeling the actual tremor in your hands or the lump in your throat. It keeps the feelings safely contained in the head, away from the vulnerable heart or gut.
What about fiercely defending parents, even when, objectively, harm was done?
That's a very powerful form of resistance. The child needed to believe their parents were essentially good, or at least okay, for their world to feel stable. Admitting the depth of parental failure feels like acknowledging the ground beneath you wasn't safe. So the adult fiercely protects that idealized image, sometimes angrily, to shield that vulnerable child part from facing the raw truth. And that blocks access to the necessary grief and anger.
And sometimes, resistance looks like straight-up self-sabotage in the healing process itself. Like, you finally find a good therapist and suddenly you start forgetting appointments.
Or you pick a huge fight with your supportive partner right before you were going to share something really vulnerable.
Absolutely.
That's the protector part panicking. It's yelling, "Stop! Danger! Remember last time we went near this, we got hurt." It's a desperate attempt to derail the process because the potential breakthrough feels, to that part, more dangerous than the familiar pain.
So we really need to change how we think about resistance. It's not the enemy. It's not you failing.
Not at all. It's the protector, doing the only job it ever knew how to do based on past experience. It's frozen, trying to keep you safe according to old rules.
So you can't just fight it or push through it with willpower.
You can't bully it into submission. It needs to be met with, with immense patience, curiosity even, respect. You have to understand its logic. Last time you felt this, you were alone. Last time you spoke this, you were punished. Its intention is pure preservation. We have to gently acknowledge that, thank it for trying to protect us, before we can slowly, carefully ask it to perhaps soften, to let us look.
Okay. So for the person listening right now who's maybe recognized some of their own script, their own repetitions, what does this all mean if we're running on these old inherited programs? How do we even start to consciously write the next line? Because clearly just telling yourself think positive isn't going to cut it.
No, it really isn't. Positive thinking has its place, but it can't touch these deep structures. The work isn't about slapping a coat of paint on the surface. It's about dissent. It's about reckoning. It's about integration. This is the really deep, ongoing process that Freud called working through. The German is Durchbeißen.
Durchbeißen. It sounds laborious. What does that actually involve?
It is laborious, and it's slow. And it's often frustratingly repetitive in itself. It's the process of gradually integrating all that stuff that got split off, pushed away, repressed. Think of it like psychological digestion.
Digesting the past.
Exactly. The child had to swallow experiences, feelings, realities that were just too big, too painful, too indigestible at the time. So those undigested bits are still inside, kind of poisoning the system. Working through is the slow, deliberate chewing over, digesting, metabolizing of that past, so it stops controlling your present and becomes just part of your history.
So the problem is repetition. Does working through also involve repetition, going over the same ground again?
Often, yes. Annoyingly so sometimes. You'll see the pattern emerge again. You'll catch yourself with your foot raised, about to kick that tower over. But the crucial difference, the shift, it doesn't come from suddenly having superhuman willpower to stop it. It comes through recognition.
Seeing it as it happens.
That's the breakthrough moment. Not necessarily stopping the behavior instantly, but finally seeing the pattern as it's unfolding. Recognizing, there it is, that's the old script running. In that moment of recognition, the symptom stops being just a problem and becomes a messenger. You witness it, maybe with a bit more compassion this time, and maybe you choose a slightly different response. Even a tiny shift.
And that starts to change things.
It shifts the repetition from being a deterministic curse to being an invitation to understand something deeper.
You said earlier that the original wound was relational. It happened in connection or lack of connection with caregivers. So does the healing also need to be relational?
That's really the cornerstone of much psychodynamic thinking. The wound happened in relationship, and often the deepest healing happens in relationship too. The unconscious is, in a way, always seeking another chance, setting up these transferences, not just to repeat the pain, but hoping for a different outcome this time.
Hoping for a corrective experience.
Exactly. It needs a witness, a safe relationship, whether that's with a therapist, a truly understanding friend, a partner, someone who can provide the consistent, attuned, non-judgmental presence that was missing the first time around.
What does that look like? What does that witness actually do?
It means perhaps for the first time, you get to speak the unbearable truth. You get to say, it wasn't fair, or I was so scared, or I needed you and you weren't there. And the witness, they just stay. They listen. They receive the weight of that truth without trying to fix it, dismiss it, or judge you for it.
They just hold the space.
They hold the space. That act of having someone stay present with your deepest pain, your oldest rage, your vulnerability, without abandoning you or shaming you, that's the alchemy. That steady, compassionate presence allows your nervous system to finally learn a different response. It can start to build new neural pathways, pathways of safety and trust.
So it means allowing ourselves to feel the grief, the anger, the stuff we couldn't feel back then.
Yes. It's giving yourself permission to finally mourn the love you didn't get in the way you needed it, to grieve the childhood you deserved but didn't have, to feel the legitimate anger about unfairness, that buried grief, that buried anger that's the fuel for the depression or the anxiety. Letting it surface safely is part of the metabolizing process.
It sounds like reparenting yourself in a way.
In many ways it is. And like any parenting, it requires immense patience and self-compassion. It's not linear. There are steps forward and steps back.
So what does the rewritten script look like then? It's not about becoming some perfect, always happy person, is it?
Not at all. It's more about shifting from those old, unconscious, survival-based decisions to conscious choices. So instead of the hidden command, I must be small and quiet to be safe, the new affirmation might be, it's okay for me to take up space. My voice matters.
Instead of, I must never need anything.
It becomes, I can honor my needs. I can learn to ask for what I need. It's the difference between twisting yourself into knots to earn conditional love and having the courage to offer your real, sometimes messy, authentic self and trusting that genuine connection can find you there.
And recognizing that those old defenses, the resistance, the perfectionism, they were brilliant in their time.
They were absolutely brilliant. They saved your life. They protected that vulnerable child in an impossible situation.
Yeah.
We have to honor them for that, but you don't need them in exactly the same way now. Not all the time.
The unconscious isn't trying to punish us with these repetitions.
No. It's trying to awaken you. The fact that the resistance might be getting stronger or the repetitions feel louder or clearer now, that's actually a good sign. It means you're getting closer to the core material, closer to the buried treasure that holds the key to unlocking yourself. So, if there's one thing to take away, perhaps it's this. You are not fundamentally a victim of your script. You are its author. An author who, maybe understandably, forgot they were writing it. The unconscious, in its own strange way, just wants you to remember. It wants you to meet the past, not to magically change what happened, but to change its power over your choices today.
Which leads us to a final thought for you to maybe just sit with. That path you keep finding yourself on, the shadowed one, the one that feels so familiar even when it hurts, maybe it's not your destiny. Maybe, just maybe, it's your invitation. Seeing the strings, feeling the pull of the repetition. It's the very first act of beginning to loosen them. You are allowed to rewrite the next line. You are allowed to be messy and whole and gloriously imperfectly yourself.